Hello, my name is Stacy Renee. I'm a mindset coach. I like to say a life coach, a life on life's terms coach, because life is life in. And I do hope that next time y'all will be able to hear me. This is really frustrating. It asked me if YouTube crashed on me, and YouTube did crash. I came on here a second time, and what happened was that it just sat there, did not run at all. I went live and it set at 0 the whole time. It did not do anything. Then it wouldn't let me go out and come back in again. It didn't let me do anything. So I hope, can you hear me this time? This is really freaky what YouTube's doing tonight. I am not liking this, what it did tonight, because there's no reason y'all shouldn't have been able to hear me the first time. I didn't touch the screen. I didn't do anything. Then the second time I tried to go out and come back in, it crashed. It crashed. I came on. I had to put all the information back in again, and then it crashed again. So they even asked me, did it crash? And then I got to resume this, thank goodness. So I didn't have to put the information back in, because even last time I didn't put all the information in. It takes me time to put that information in before I go live, because for some reason, I'm challenged with technology, so I do not need any glitches in here. So I'll give y'all a few minutes. My apologies. It was not my fault. I don't know why it did that. But I told them, yeah, because they asked me, did it crash? I'm like, yeah, it did crash. It crashed. Pissed me right off. All right. So now, great. I'm glad it's all good now. How are y'all doing this evening? How was your day today? Your Friday? We'll give people a few minutes to come on here. John London, I'm so happy that you're here. Kim, I'm glad you're here. I buttoned up my shirt and I'm ready to go today. So here we go. I'm having me some water, staying hydrated. So happy Friday. Happy Friday. John, are you tucked in the bed? Because it's late where you are, right? It must be midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning over there. I thank you for being here. Thanks, Kim. Thank you. So I had a good day today. You know what? I got dressed up and I thought I was going to go out and walk all the way down to the beach side, porch side, as we call it, so I thought I was going to walk, but I got a ride. So then I thought I'm going to get to walk back. You like that shirt? Well, thank you. Thanks. I appreciate that. I do too. My friend Soraya gave it to me. And she just left this morning to go on a road trip. I just love my friends. They, just imagine, here we are. We call ourselves sisters because there's 3 of us. And one's from New York, one's from LA, and then there's me, the Texan. And we all meet down here in Mexico. And somehow we bond together. And we're just all as different as we can be. But it's so beautiful and cool and quirky. So tonight, I know y'all don't want to hear all about my personal life. Maybe Kim and John do, but I don't know who else is here. And maybe you're wanting to hear about mindset. And maybe I didn't get to put the hashtags in, though, because I had to go back out and come back in, and I was in a hurry. I'll go back and have to do the edits and put hashtags in. But we're talking about tonight, your personality, your personal reality, as Joe Dispenza calls it. Thanks, darling. As Joe Dispenza calls it. But, our personalities, a lot of us, sometimes say, well, this is the way that I am, and we're just like, okay, blanket, this is the way that I am. We've talked in the last couple of weeks about the ACE evaluation. That's an adverse childhood experience for adults. It's a test that people take, to kind of gauge on where they develop some survival skills. And we also talked about the characters that we learn to play in our families to stay safe. Maybe we were the caretaker, the peacemaker, the rebel, and all of those things. Remember, we talked about that, because sometimes when we become a people pleaser, we become a chameleon. And so what we don't realize is oftentimes we find shame because our soul knows that we're divine just as we are. Ramon, good evening. How are you this fine day? So our soul knows that we are so worthy, valuable, and divine. And you were born worthy, valuable, and divine. But so many people will try to be better. They don't feel like they're good enough, or they feel like they're too much. And I have to remind people, he's driving. All right. So is he listening to me while he's driving? So thank y'all. Thanks everyone for being here. So about remembering your worth, value, and divinity, because sometimes we turn into all of these other things, think we got to become something or someone else. So I've got my notes here, so I'll be looking for your comments, and I'm going to get started. And as always, if people come in later, I have a review. Are y'all ready for this? Here we go. So, it was talked about, as we've talked about the ACE test the past couple of weeks, it was brought to me the Big Five test. So I talked the other night because I got confused. So I talked about the five essential yes, but no waving. I told him to put the phone down. Good. So we talked about thank you, John London. And I hope she will come with us over there to Europe. So we're planning on our story to be continued in Europe because we've had this van. Okay, I'll indulge a little more. We've had this van, and she has allowed me to use that van. She's a world traveler. She used to be a flight attendant, so she still gets benefits. So she gets to go all over the world. And as she's gone all over the world, she's allowed me to use her van. And she moved me from the house in Cancun that I lived in when I was married. Hey, a good day, Rodolfo. So she moved me out of that house with this van. We have so many memories in this van. And so the van is going back to the United States because we met down here in Mexico, and we won't see that van anymore. But oh, the memories that we've had in that van, John London, we took my dog, our other friend's cat, and we took Grinch. We all went to the Yellow City down here in Mexico. I think it's yeah. I don't even want to mess up. I can't remember all these names. Anyway, we took it to the Yellow City on the way to Merida, and so we go to a restaurant with a dog, a cat, and a bird. But thankfully, down here they don't frown upon you taking the animals in. They're very friendly. So anyway, it's so cool the things that we've gotten to do. Anyway, back to the topic. The topic is, what is your personality? Can you change? So we're going to talk about all these different things, aspects of ourselves. It's going to be a little bit out of the box this evening, okay? Are y'all ready? Because we're not trying to be in the box. All right, so we talked about the ACE evaluation and how the ACE evaluation influences our survival skills. And oftentimes we're trying to mold ourselves into other things. All right, Rodolfo, here we grow. And so when we're trying to mold ourselves into different things, it's oftentimes, what we would call those survival skills, those roles that we learn to play to be safe. Sometimes we played small. Now, this ain't a bully stream, Louise. Welcome. It's good to see you here. And I hope that you're going to be able to get something out of this evening. So what we have also learned by trying to people please, by trying to fit into all these different things, is we've also gotten some tangible tools. And so healing, though, we won't find the tangible tools until we do the healing process. A lot of us, healing is not just a woo-woo thing. We wouldn't be, a lot of the different faiths talk about healing. It wouldn't be even a word if it wasn't a thing. So I got my notes here so I can see your comments. And so we talked about the Big Five test, and there's also, and I looked at the Big Five test. I took the Big Five test, John London, van life. Yes, it was so fun, but she's taking it back. And so, yeah, it was fun. So we used to call it the Good Times Van, and it isn't in that kind of context like it was back in the 70s. Okay. It was like our tours, our travels, our experiences, just girls loading up in the van, and sometimes the guys loaded up in the van. And I made many airport runs to bring people over here to have fun, so taking people to the airport, taking people back from the airport. We just have a really good time, and it's about getting to be ourselves. So I'm going to just say a few things that we do. We don't have the bullying on here. What we talk about is, and what we don't talk about. Let's talk about what we don't talk about. What we don't talk about is politics, religion, my age, and things like this. And we don't bully on here. This is a supportive community here. And so the comments need to be kept supportive. And I thank you so much for that. And I thank you for choosing to spend your time here. Okay? All right. So we talked about the Big Five test, and I took the Big Five test, John London. You need to retake the Big Five test. It is the insights. There are insights. I'm going to talk about that. There's the Big Five test, and it's really more reputable than the Myers-Briggs test. They said the Big Five test is better because the Myers-Briggs also talks about the different roles, right, that people can fall into, the INFJs, the initials, right? So, and we're always subject to change. This is the thing. Can your personality change? Why, yes, your personality can change, but you've got to be the one to change it. It's not going to, instead of being that chameleon, it's like, what do you want? So it's still about realizing what we want, but knowing that there's different tools that we can have that will help us to create what we want or help us to realize what we want and help us to play. Oftentimes with working with the clients, I have to remind them that we need to, and I had to learn. That's why I get to remind them, is because I had to learn not to be so serious, but yet to take life serious. So how do you find the harmony in between? That's what we always get on here every Friday night and talk about. Hello, round-headed gull. You need to retake the Big Five test. It was interesting, very interesting, John London. I really enjoyed it. Did I make a thing for this? True, I never really liked the Myers-Briggs. I heard personality is very changeable before 30 and then gets more difficult and fixed, static, difficult to change. Yes. So I'm going to, for those people who aren't familiar with the Big Five test or the Myers-Briggs, don't worry, because I'm going to thank you for all the thumbs ups, because I'm going to explain those tests if you're unaware what they are. And I'm going to talk about how our personalities are, because a lot of people look for people to define them outside of themselves, especially in codependency. Sometimes we overachieve, overdo things because we're trying to, get that approval, but we're also trying to prove to ourselves. Isn't it interesting that we're trying to get approval and prove something, and so, but yeah, so we're going to dig deep. Y'all ready? Here we go. I know Rodolfo's ready. So we've been talking about the ACE test over the past couple of weeks, which is adverse childhood experience, which influences our growth. And as we talked about these things, it helped us develop survival skills, which caused us to anticipate and to strategize others' needs and abandon ourselves to become or play a role, that we would feel accepted with, So developing the different characters. So we adapted. So developing the different characters may have us lost and feeling for a variety of reasons. Developing the different characters, may have us feeling lost for a variety of reasons. I know that in addiction and codependency, that what we often say, we liken ourselves to transformation like a chameleon. Yes, I do have 1,000. I almost have 1,100, y'all. So I just need I think 8 more subscribers to get 1,100. Thank you so much, John London. Yes, we are on our way. So if this resonates with anybody, please subscribe to this channel and join this community, because we are growing, and there's something in energy. There's just magic in energy, right? And so that's what I love here is, when everyone gets on here, and it's the magic of the energy of uplifting each other and, getting to learn things and getting to ponder things, because I learned things from y'all. Hello, Pam. How are you? I hope that you've had a marvelous Friday. Magical. So we're talking about, have you heard of, Pam, the Big Five test? And I know you've probably heard of the Myers-Briggs test. So we're talking kind of about that this evening, but we're going to talk about our personalities and can we change our personalities, and I just talked about how sometimes in addiction and in codependency, we will become a chameleon and, to adapt to what other people want, to be approved by other people, and to feel like we fit in. Sometimes we do that. So, we'll anticipate and play the role. So we talked about these things also with the survival skills with the ACE test. Good, just leaving work, the Briggs test for sure. Well, the Big Five is even a deeper test than the Briggs test. And I took the Big Five test as John London and I think Robbie Grinchy. Say hi to Kim. Say hi, Kim. Say hi, Kim. So, Robbie, I think, and John London, you feel the magic every stream too. Thank you, John London. I do too. So, yeah, so the ACE test kind of tells us where we come from. And so I'm talking about where we want to grow. And there's a lot of different things like these tests can tell us where our strong points are and what our weak points are. But let me get back to my notes so I don't get ahead of myself, or else I'm going to look like I'm going back and forth. So I haven't seen Robbie yet. I hope he makes it. He did message me in the comments, but I don't know if Robbie's here tonight. I know John London's here though. And so is Rodolfo. I think Rodolfo is still here. So I'm going to explain, if you don't know what the Big Five test and the Myers-Briggs test is and what the differences are between those tests, in case because you can go look at the personality test and these tests are going to come up. And if you want to take those tests yourself, they're good for giving you information, so you can get information about yourself. But we're going to talk about how getting to know ourselves, knowing ourselves through the test and what are we looking for? I'm always asking y'all, what are we looking for when we get to kind of like when we're trying to distract ourselves, when we're getting into different things, what are we looking for? So that's being empowered, is when we know what we're looking for. So we talked about, the adverse childhood experience test. So developing the different characters may have us lost for a variety of reasons. I'm just backing up a little bit because I think there's a few people who just came on. And so, as we talked about how that, okay, let me find, I get lost. Okay. While we're losing ourselves, we're developing tangible tools. So these survival skills that we developed during like the adverse childhood experiences, we developed survival skills that helped us to adapt to whatever was going on in the home, either when we were young or even as adults. So adapting to this, but we also turn into chameleons. And in essence, sometimes we feel like we've lost ourselves. So I explained in addiction and codependency, this is pretty common, this chameleon type behavior. So while we're losing ourselves, we're developing the tangible tools, but we may not even realize it, because you're developing strengths by trying to always get approval from other people, but you don't notice your strengths. And we won't even accept hello, Animatrix. We won't even be able to really accept a compliment until we accept ourselves and we accept our strengths. Because when we don't feel good enough, we just don't feel good enough. And so we have to learn who we are from ourselves. All right, Lil Yummy, you won't be here long with language shut. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Okay. So learning what we do, why we what we do. Learning why we do what we do. That's my jam. That's what I like to talk about, because I too had to learn why I do what I do. And sometimes it's self-sabotaging. And what we're trying to do is to find comfort, but sometimes comfort feels self-sabotaging. So while losing ourselves, we may be developing tangible tools, or we may not even realize it. And why not? Why don't we realize it? Well, because unless we grow through healing after feeling lost and like we don't matter, until we take the journey to transform ourselves from the inside out rather than the outside in, what can we get outside of ourselves? So it's, many people learning why we do what we do. A lot of people believe in, okay, before or after we get to that, we may recognize other influences that help decide our character, like astrology. I do believe that there's something to the signs in astrology. I do believe that under certain moons, we develop certain characteristics, and I think that that's true. There's energy underneath the planets and the moons and all of this, so the energy. So some of it's astrology. Sometimes people are looking to find themselves through astrology. This is my sign and this is the way that I am. I do believe in that, but I don't, and there is even fixed signs. I'm a fixed sign, but I've certainly changed a whole lot. So it doesn't mean because you're a fixed sign or because of this or that we have to stay this way. I talked a few weeks ago about twin flames and trauma bonds. Sometimes we have to really get with what's real too. What is real to me, rather than staying lost in these things. So some people try to find themselves through astrology. What am I? Who am I? Through astrology. And I believe, like I said, the sun and the moon and the planets and stars do influence, and as they have a lot more influence over our personalities when we look at how they can affect nature, right? They affect nature. Like we have the full moon coming, blue moon. It's called a blue moon because it's the second moon in this month of May. The first full moon was at the beginning of the month, and we're finishing out with another full moon. So it has less power far as being it's farther away from us, and it's not even going to be blue. So that's your thing about that. So those things do affect nature. Some people look at tarot cards, and that's another way of perceiving our stories. It's a perception though, and some say it's fortune telling, right? Because the thing is that we want certainty. When we look at what am I looking for, we want certainty. So I believe in intuition. I think it is involved in the tarot. But as you've heard me say, we need to know the difference between expectation and intuition. John London, same. I can't explain why, but astrology definitely works. It was even a science studied in the 1800s at Oxford. I know, and for those people, some people say astrology and tarot cards are sinful. And if that helps you believe, I'm not going to say that anybody's wrong with their belief system. But what I do say is that my argument to that is, well, they found Jesus under the stars. They, looked for the stars to find Jesus. And also, when we're kids, and I think I have it written here, but when we're kids, like when I was a kid, we used to play Old Maid to decide how many kids, if we're going to get married, what age, and all of this stuff. I can't remember exactly how it went when we were kids and played Old Maid to decide our future. And we played these other games that y'all have heard me talk about to decide our future. But then when we get older and we're playing these games, sometimes we get labeled as, witchcraft, or you get labeled as this or woo-woo or whatever. But I do believe that we need to return to our childlike state. And I believe the cards, while they're not going to maybe tell your future, but I think that, getting to play with them and say, and apply them to our life, what's going on in our life. And you can play with them and apply it, but it's not a fixed and it's not a solution to our problems, right? So that's what I'm trying to say is these things aren't solutions to our problems, but certainly I think that we look for answers through these things sometimes. So sometimes I see people even on Facebook. I see people on Facebook getting Facebook to tell them what they look like, getting Facebook to tell them what their personality is like, what kind of person that they are. Now, I don't want Facebook. I'm careful about what algorithms that I feed. And so that's what it means so much to me that you all are here, because it's important to look at the algorithms that we feed, because everybody's collecting data. And what kind of data do we want what kind of data do we want to feed? Because they work off of that data, the powers that be, whoever they are. This data is used for different things. Hello, beautiful mama. I'm glad you did make it. John London. I have found it hard to reconcile the tarot, astrology, witchy stuff with religion, but it's all part of the world we live in. It is, and it's like, I'm getting to the bottom line here pretty soon. I'm just talking about the different ways that people will look for, who am I? What's going to happen with my future? And all these uncertainties in life that we look for these tools, and these are tangible tools too for some folks, But, we're getting to all these different things about how we can find ourselves and how these things are tools, but they don't define us, right? They don't define us because we are each individuals with individual gifts. But these things can be fun to play with and returning to our childlike state. See, because when I am talking to these, when I do talk to AI and I'm feeding AI information, if they ever come back at me changing my words into becoming, me and AI have a fight, because I do not encourage my clients or my friends or people around me to become anybody other than who they are, because we have become, I know I have in my codependency and addiction, I was a chameleon. I know that in my childhood trauma, I became different characters and different roles. And so being me is what I want to be, and that's freedom. And that's what I want you to understand about yourself, is who you are. is perfectly fine and divine. I had a client earlier this evening, and that's what I was talking to her about, is that who you are is okay. You just haven't accepted that. We have these personal personalities that are just distinctly ours. And who we are is perfectly fine. And it's okay to be weird. I've been weird. I'm still weird a little bit, but I did try to play small so that I wouldn't appear to be weird at one time in my life. And that's kind of a manipulation. And I'll be talking about that more down here too. So these games on Facebook, people will look for it to tell them who they are. Hi, Logan. It's good to see you. So sometimes people do that to tell them who they are. I'm not like going to feed Facebook my algorithm and let Facebook tell me who I am. I will not. But I do like to take, am I a healer? Well, that's an interesting question. I work with the healing arts, but I don't define myself as a healer because people have to want to heal, and so it's not just me being a healer to people. I do work with healing arts. And so yes and no, because everyone's a healer if they choose to acknowledge it within themselves. So I'm a catalyst, I'm a channel, but I don't know about if I'm a healer. Thank you though, Logan. That's a great question. I don't label myself as a healer. Yes, we should all become who we are, the higher self. Absolutely. Thank you, Kim. Thank you. Yes, Logan, I am a mindset coach. So I'm bringing this to our attention as a mindset coach. So what are we looking for? Are we looking for guidance? Are we looking for someone to tell us who we are, right? Are we looking for guidance? Because these are tools that can help us guide us. Or are we looking for these different things to tell us who we are? So I want, like John London just said, is to be who we are, our higher self, And so the wisdom to know the difference is really important here, is to know, am I, looking for information or I'm looking for somebody to tell me something. So, curiosity is cool. And that's what connects us to our childlike self, to the, getting curious, our childlike self, because children are curious. What's this? What's that? But we get afraid of looking like we don't know and looking stupid if we ask questions, or I did. And I don't think I'm alone. And so sometimes these fears block us. So keep talking, I'm close. All right. So curiosity is cool. And I like to play with the cards as an adult sometimes, and that gets a bad rap. I like mysticism. I like to know how things worked and how we operated before TV and computers and all of that. How were we entertained? And sometimes the wise people, the wise men and the wise people, high cloud like, they carried these lapis lazuli crystals, they carried these crystals. And so crystals are really cool because when I was a kid, again, talking about my childlike state, I used to watch The Land of the Lost. And the slee stacks would go in this little pyramid that had these crystals in it to make things work. So being a kid, they are enchanting orange juices. So before computer, you're 19. Oh, Logan. Yes, you had a computer because I was just talking about the other night. I had to get a computer when my daughter was 14 because she could not even do her homework without a computer. I bet that is so crazy for you to hear us talk about before computers come out, Mr. John Fork. Okay. All right. Thank you, Cloudlike. I appreciate that. All right. Orange juice is good. So back to the topic, okay? So as a little girl, I used to play Old Maid and it would tell us our future. Yet when we get older, we're told that this is witchery or sinful. And I think that's silly. That is brief and it's yours. It's a belief and it's okay, if it's yours, but the cards don't hurt anybody. Okay. Neither do the crystals unless you throw them at somebody. And nobody wants to be throwing their crystals because they're kind of expensive. So whether you're looking at a personality test, astrology cards, social media, these are all great tools to help you decide your preferences of where you could use growth and relate strengths and weaknesses, you know? Because I did take the Big Five test, and it does tell, it does tell you your strengths and weaknesses and where you score. So the reality is that we all have positive and negative attributes and are subject to change and transform. I do believe we can learn about a lot about ourselves through these tools and through these tests, you know. So the reality is that even with the ACE evaluation and acknowledging your survival skills, can help you grow and turn the survival skills into tangible tools when we acknowledge all the work and creativity that involved and all that we did to please others and learn how we can apply that energy to ourselves. And when we let go of the guilt and the shame from losing ourselves and manipulate and turn it into someone else to get the love and approval that we wanted but didn't claim for ourselves. See, that's taking ownership. Is that when I worked on my codependency, I had to learn that I was manipulating people when I wasn't being myself, when I was too afraid to be myself. I was manipulating people when I was trying to act like what I thought they wanted me to act like and do what they wanted me to do instead of considering myself. You and your hubby watched that when you were kids, The Land of the Lost? I love me some Will. Will! It was kind of like the flume ride the log ride at Six Flags, right? When they would be riding, yeah. So Cloud Light, how can someone give me context on what exactly we're talking about here? We're talking about personalities and these different tests and these different things that we use, these different tools that we use outside of ourselves to help define our personalities or to help predict our future or to help us to think of who am I, you know? So, and understanding that all these tools are helpful in creating what you want, the problem is that some are afraid to believe, have faith, and trust to go after what they want, you know. So that's what I was saying earlier to a client is, it's okay to be weird. It's okay to want what we want. It's okay if other people don't like what we want. It is deep. Well, we'll get to the life lesson for chat. We're talking about it, but you can't get one life lesson out of life because life is full and expansive, and we're going to be talking about not putting it in a cup, because it don't fit in a cup. All right. You came here for Grinch Trey. Grinch, you have a fan club here. You sure do. Grinch was in his house, but when we get to the breathing tray, hang in here because Grinch is going to come out when we start breathing. So, and understanding these tools are helpful in helping you to create what you want. The problem is that some are afraid to believe, have faith, and trust and go after what we want. Okay, so let's explore these personality tests in reference to all of this and how we can move forward. So the Myers-Briggs type indicator, the MBTI, Myers-Briggs type indicator, MBTI, is a popular self-report questionnaire. It categorizes people into 16 distinct personality types. It evaluates how individuals direct their energy, absorb information, and make decisions and approach daily life, resulting in the unique 4-letter code. So you'll hear people say, oh, I am INFJ, or I am, all of this different stuff, these initials, these 4 initials. And when you hear that, now you know what people are talking about. It's the Myers-Briggs test. So this test measures preferences across 4 fundamental categories. Here they are. Y'all ready for this? Here they are. Energy source. You love the code? Awesome. So energy source. What's your energy sources? The codes for the energy source are the E for extroversion or the I for introversion. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? And then the information gathering has its initials too. It's an S for sensing or an N for intuition. So it says versus. So that's why I'm a little stuffed up. So in decision making, are you a thinking person with a T? Are you a feeling person with an F? So we're either thinking and making our decisions. You're an INTJ. All right. See? Clayton knows what I'm talking about here. And then for lifestyle and structure, Are you a judging person with a J or a perceiving person? See, so this is where all these initials come in. You're an INTJ, Rodolfo? See, y'all know. Y'all know. All right. Well, thank you, Blake Brooke. I appreciate that. And yeah, I like all the different faiths, but we don't talk about religion on here because I want to respect all the religions and I don't want us getting into religious arguments over here. Okay. So thank you, Jesus is and everything, but we're not talking about religion on here. But I appreciate and I respect all the different faiths. All right. So these combinations from 16 specific profiles, such as INTJ or ESFP, first developed by Catherine Cook Briggs and her daughter Isabel Briggs Myers. So the framework is based on the psychologist Carl Jung's theory of psychological types. Thank you for those thumbs. Is that you, Pam, or Kim? Blake, I wasn't starting an argument. I know, no, I wasn't saying that, Blake. I just saw that there was another quote after yours, and no, you were not starting an argument. I wouldn't say that at all. And I totally respect your faith. I think that that's cool from the pagan world. So thank you. I really didn't mean that. Cloud-like, I'm 21 and I just got out of a 2-year relationship I genuinely thought should be my future wife. It's only been 2 days and I feel completely numb. How would you cope with something like this? Oh, Cloud-like, it's grief. That's what that is. You're experiencing grief, darling, and you have to just breathe and do the next right thing. Walk. I know sometimes it feels like I can't even focus because that's what grief does. You're probably having troubles focusing. And I know I've walked through grief too, and I had to wake up each day and say, well, this is the day today. So today is May, 29th? Today is May 29th. You'll get up tomorrow and say tomorrow's May 30th, and to be open and receptive to a new experience each day. And like Kim says, feel your feelings, cry if you want to cry. You know, you sound like a really nice person, and I don't know what happened, but I know that you're worthy, valuable, and divine. And so, you know, you may later look back and be grateful, but right now you don't. I used to hate when I would be going through a breakup and somebody would say, a reasoned season in a lifetime. And I would be like, you know what? Your reasoned season in a lifetime. I was not real thrilled about that, but I've learned that life really is a reasoned season in a lifetime. But I'm not going to tell you that. I'm just going to say that for me, when I'm grieving, crying, like Kim says, feeling your feelings, but also, you know, don't, if she's asked for space, if she broke up, I don't know if she broke up or you broke up, but you just need to give some space and some thought, and, you know, that will help. But remembering what day it is and what you have to do today, because you're still valuable, even if you don't have that relationship. Okay. It's you. The heart still ain't working, but thank you. The thumbs up are working great. I appreciate you. All right. Ishak. No, I'm not saying that. And my glove, greetings. You had a rainy day and your shift was canceled. Well, it's good to see you here this evening, my glove. We're talking about the Big Five and the Briggs-Myers test and things like this. And then I'm going to summarize. So I'll do a summary here in a minute. I just can't focus on anything. I can't even sleep. Sometimes it feels like I'm suffocating, and it's my first time going through something like this. Oh, I feel for you. I've gone through this, and it is. You'll find yourself obsessing. What are they doing? Because when somebody's been a part of your life and they're not anymore, we obsess. And so I often suggest to people, you do what you want to, but the suggestion is to breathe, pray, and say, I don't know. Because when we're obsessing, we're making up stories about, I wonder if they're with this person right now. I wonder if they're having fun and I'm not. I'm over here hurting and they're probably just over there laughing and da 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 da. I mean, all this stuff that we make up in our head when we're obsessing. So it can drive us crazy. It can keep us blocked from doing what we're supposed to be doing. When I used to get like that, I would be supposed to answer the phone at work. And I remember distinctly when I came up with this breathe, pray, and say, I don't know. Because I would be supposed to answer the phone at work and I would be mad at the phone ringing while I'm trying to obsess on things. And I was like, Stacy, this is not right. You cannot be getting mad at the phone for ringing because you're trying to obsess on things, because that was my job. So I had to go to the bathroom, take a break, go to the bathroom, and start processing this. So it's like, breathe, because it does cloud like. You'll have anxiety was part of your grief too. It's like feeling like you can't breathe, like you're suffocating. So breathe, darling. We're going to breathe at the end of this, taking that deep breath in, filling up your tummy and holding it, letting your shoulders rise and your head rise, because you're still valuable, even though you don't have what you want right now. And then hold it for a minute. And, in that holding, asking, praying, saying, God, please remove this obsession for me. Help me to stay where my hands are, And let me know that I don't know, because we really don't know what they're doing. We can't call and ask what they're doing. We need to just be where we are. So I would breathe, pray, and say, I don't know. And doing that, not making stories up, leaves me open to magic, mystery, and miracles. You probably want this person to come back right now. I don't know if that's the right or wrong thing. I can't tell anybody that, but I can tell you how to cope with it. So breathe, pray, let the obsession go away, that you can stay where your hands are and say, I don't know. Because I don't know does leave you open for the magic, mystery, and miracles when we're not making up stories and trying to figure these things out, because you can't. Okay? I hope that that's helpful. Trey, you always give plenty of space. Good. John London. Yes. You'll accept that she wasn't the one for you with time and life goes on. Do try to distract yourself with everything else in your life. Luke Oakley. Well, it's good to see you up in here. I'm glad that you're here. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. I've heard my mom has it going on. Thank you very much. Ishak. No, we're not. Ishak, I hope that this is going to be able to help you, but we're not talking about none of that, and I'm not going to pay attention to any more of your comments if they follow along those lines. Okay, darling? My glove. Yes, you are very welcome. And Trace, I rent space in my attic too. I know it's like we can obsess, right? Louise, but do I have to? I don't like it. Well, whatever. It's okay if you don't like me. I like me. John London, true. It takes months, sometimes years to get over someone you feel that way for. Yeah, it's just a process, but it's not indicative of who you are. Because sometimes we aren't compatible. I had to learn I'm not compatible with everybody. I might be really attracted to somebody, but it doesn't mean that I'm compatible with them. Okay, my glove. I'm enjoying it. Oh, good. Good deal. I'm glad you're having a good day, my glove. Matt Torrance. I like that. Breathe and pray and say, I don't know. Yes, Matt. It has been so helpful for me to quit obsessing over things I have no control over and to open me up for magic, mystery, and miracles. Louise, why even bother? I don't know. Because life is laughing. Trey, obsession can be a blessing or a curse, depending. Exactly, Trey. I believe that too. Everything can be negative or positive. It's just like, where are we going to put our energy? Because energy is important and your energy is valuable. You are valuable. McGlove, Luis. Because how I can be around someone I don't like and be honest. Well, you can't, right? Being honest. Yeah. Rodolfo, you're sweet. I don't know. But not saying the truth is lying. Yep. Hey, Kahana in Arizona. Blessings to you too. It don't needs to be said. Well, I like that Rumi thing. Does it need to be said? Does it need to be said by me, or is it real? Is it true? And is it does it need to be said, or whatever? I can't remember it right now. But Cloud, like, yeah, you're right. I'm getting angry at very small inconveniences on other people. I know. I have to breathe, pray, and say I don't know, so I don't get mad at people for interrupting my obsessions. I don't do it as bad anymore since I learned to do that, because I was making myself crazy. It just sucks. I should get my shit together. Yeah. Good. I'm glad that it's helpful and I'm glad that you're here. And we're going to breathe at the end of this cloud like, and it does help us get into the present moment of feeling safe within yourself. You know, Ty Hughes, you don't know what you don't know. That's exactly right. We do not know what we don't know. McGlove, I've acquired the Susan B. Anthony dollar coins. Need 3 more to finish, all in due time. Very cool. I'm glad you got those. Just in time. All right, some of y'all silly. I ain't even reading your comments or acknowledging this. I'm staying on topic. Okay. All right. Cloudlight, you are very welcome. It will be all right. It will be. You just got to breathe and say what. Stay in the day, stay where your hands are, and before you know it. Hey, Rare, it's good to see you. Thomas Huntos, the main topic is our personality and how we, may look at different things to, thank you for the thumbs, Pam, how we may look at different things to kind of decide our personality. We talked about the ACE scores in the past couple of weeks, and that's the adverse childhood experiences and how they mold us, and we develop adaptations and survival skills, and we do turn into different characters and roles in order to be accepted and to be loved and these kind of things. But we learn that that's, not truly who we are, but we did develop survival skills that can turn into tangible tools, because a lot of times when we realize we've done these survival skills, that we've played a part in some negative behaviors of manipulating to try to get people to love us and do everything that they want. And then in the end, they don't love us like we feel we deserve to be loved. And it's true, because your soul knows you deserve to be loved. You were born worthy and lovable. And so we talk about that, but a lot of people may look at Facebook to tell them what their personality is and what they look like. Some people may look at these personality tests that I'm about to explain exactly how they work. The Briggs-Myers, the test, and also the Big Five test. Some people may look to astrology, to see their personality type. Some people may look to tarot cards. And while none of that's wrong, it isn't indicative of who you are. So it's important to be mindful of what are we looking for to help us decide who we are and where we're growing, because we get to decide our future. The cards aren't going to tell us our whole future. Now, they may relate with us. We're going to look at them and we're certainly going to read them our way, just like, in the childhood, when we've talked about the childhood experiences growing up, like Gabor Mate says, is each child growing up in the same house has a different experience. So how do we find ourselves? Finding ourselves, what is my personality? And can my personality change? And yes, we evolve through time and our personalities will change. Our personalities, personal realities, as Joe Dispenza likes to call them. So we talked about the IN, all the different types of the Briggs-Myers ones, the energy source, and that being the initials for it are the extrovert, the extroversion or introversion. Are you an extrovert or introvert? So that describes you there. And I know I'm both. I can be both. I can be very friendly outside. I love people, but then there's times I need to be introverted and recharge, that I just don't feel like people in, because I need to recharge. Because when I'm out there, I'm all out. When I'm in, I'm all in. So there's also information gathering. Do I sense information or am I intuitive? So the S and the N. And then on decision making, how do we make decisions? Is it thinking or feeling? And that's the T and the F. And so the lifestyle and structure, am I judging the lifestyle and structure? Am I perceiving? So, it's like the judging would be from the inside out and from the perceiving would be from the outside in. What's my perception? So those are the things with the Myers-Briggs evaluations. So that these combinations form 16 specific profiles, such as INTJ, ESFP, which some people related with earlier. What are the consequences for making a human body as a vessel for another being? I don't understand that question really, my falling star. Your vessel is your vessel. It's the only one you're going to get for this lifetime, your body. And so it's important to take care of it, but to acknowledge and respect your body and have a relationship with your body. Ty Hughes, read the Serenity Prayer. Darling, I don't need to read that. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. You don't know how many times I have to ask myself the wisdom to know the difference. We have to tell ourselves sometimes the wisdom to know the difference, because there's things we can change. Some things we just need to pray about and let it be. So, Carl Jung's theory of psychological types. Okay, so that's where that test came from. So the MBTI is heavily utilized in corporate team building, career counseling, and personal development to foster better self-awareness and communication. However, it's worth noting that many personality psychologists point out a lack of scientific validity and rigor compared to scientifically backed models like the Big Five. Okay, so I can put the link in the description if you want to take this Myers-Briggs Company test. So the Big Five personality framework that I'm talking about, if you haven't taken that Big Five, because I knew that I haven't heard of that until it was brought to my attention here. I get to learn so much here. So again, thank y'all for being here. And thank you for those thumbs ups. Rayer, Thomas, nobody knows. Luis, okay. Love, it's in head. Okay, no, love is in the heart, I think. But it could be in the head too. It can be. Luis, Luke. I'm sorry, Stacy. I was very busy traveling with work. And well, I'm glad. Where did you get to go any place fun, Luke? Well, you are lucky. Falling in love is fun. Rare. We will breathe like labor class breathing. It's to regulate and regenerate our cells. Luke, I don't know is a valid response. I don't know. It is a valid response. A lot of people are afraid to say, I don't know, but I don't know gives us so much freedom rather than having to feel under pressure to come up with an answer right quick. Just, I don't know. Let me think about it. Sometimes I have to say, I don't know. Let me think about it. So, yeah, we don't need to name everything or know everything. I also don't have an educated opinion on everything. Just accepting that gives it does, Luke. That's yeah. It is a valid response. Pam. Now the thumbs up is someone else. Yay! Is that Kim? Thank you, Luke. My falling star. I got an offer for. Okay, Luke. The internet is a melting pot for half-truths, uneducated opinions, and a playground for people with too much time on their hands. Just breathe and be here right now. Yes, I'm going to pin that. I like that. McGlide, personality can change. At the moment, I'm a loner that knows how to be socially agreeable when it's necessary. That's good. My falling star. I got an offer from the world that we can't see. Okay. There are 2 or maybe 3 ways to connect to them and talk to them. I've only used one. Okay, Kim. Yes, ma'am. That's you with the thumbs. All right. So I'm going to talk to y'all about the Big Five traits. If you haven't, taken the Big Five test or you didn't know about that, and I want to thank y'all, John London. I don't know if John London's still here, but John London told me about the Big Five test, as well as Robbie told me about the Big Five test. And so when people ask me to look up something, you're Stallone. I got to be the cheesiest actor around. There you go. There you go. So this Big Five test, I encourage y'all to take it. It's easy to take. You just go on. That's what I did. Is I just went on the internet, and it's quite thorough. You went to New York City and Washington, D.C. Loved it. D.C. is more my temporary, though. Oh, cool. Cool. My friend that's headed back to America is going to end up in Washington or close to Washington, Virginia, Washington at some point in time. Kim's thumbs up. Yes. And if y'all haven't subscribed, if this is interesting to you, then please subscribe because this is an amazing community here. So the Big Five traits. When we look at the Big Five personality framework, also known as the 5-factor model or OCEAN, is the gold standard in modern psychology. Unlike Myers-Briggs type indicator, MBTI, which places you in strict categories, the Big Five measures personality along 5 continuous spectrums. So here we go. The big five traits: ocean. Openness is high scores mean that you're curious, creative, open to new experience. Conscientious, high scores indicate you're organized, reliable, and goal-oriented. Extroversion, high scores mean you're sociable, energetic, and draw energy from crowds. And then A is agreeableness. High scores reflect a cooperative, empathetic, and trusting nature. And then neuroticism. High scores mean you frequently experience emotional instability and anxiety. All right, in the MTBI verse, the big five key differences is that the measurement. So Myers-Briggs puts you in a box. Remember, we don't stay in a box here. It puts you in a box. You're either an introvert or an extrovert. And see, as I told y'all, I'm not either an introvert or an extrovert. I'm both. So the spectrums give you a percentage, you know. So also in the Myers-Briggs and the big five, the differences between them are the Myers-Briggs has low validity and it's widely criticized by modern psychologists. The big five gives you high validity and it's universally backed by academic research. So consistency, that was the scientific status. The consistency is low test, retest reliability. Results can change when retaken on the Myers-Briggs. On the big five, it's high stability. Results remain very consistent over a lifetime. So the negative traits on the Myers-Briggs is completely positive, skips darker, difficult traits. So we all got darker difficulties sometimes. We're human beings. So with the big five, it measures neuroticism, includes emotional vulnerability and stress. These are things that we experience, so we don't overlook those things. So in the primary use between the two tests, at Myers-Briggs is corporate workshops, team building, and self-discovery. And in the big five, it's academic research, it's clinical psychology, and job performance prediction. Okay. So why psychologists prefer the big five? Human personality rarely fits into neat bins. The MBTI forces a choice. If you're 51% introverted, it labels you as an introvert, grouping you with someone who's 99% introverted. The big five acknowledges that most people fall in the middle of these traits. So by using percentages, it captures the nuance of human behavior, making it highly accurate for predicting workplace success, relationship satisfaction, and mental health trends. So would you like to know, you could take the big five test, like I said, online. So I'll put the link, if I can, for it in the description as well. So in our review of what I've talked about tonight is about, we can take all these tests, but really who you are, as I am who I am. Yes, you are who you are. Can you change? Yes. Yes. I've changed, thank goodness, from who I was, so over the past several weeks, we've talked and explored topics like the ACE test. Apollo, ma'am, I'm genuine Q. I just graduated as a medical student last month. I was just chatting with the woman who turned out to be. Well, we never can decide who's going to be offended over what. I don't know. I don't know. Thank you, my love. Look, INFJ tested 2 times and it says I'm an advocate. Okay. I think I tested, when I took that, I tested INFJ also, but I haven't taken it in a while. Like it said, sometimes people, I haven't taken it in a while, but I did take this big five one just the other day. It had a lot. It was a lot. So look, those tests help you with team management and group dynamics. Yes. Yeah. So yeah. So here's the review, y'all. If you just came on later, thank you so much, Kim, or whoever's doing the thumbs up. I want to thank you all. And again, if you haven't subscribed here, then please consider subscribing. So over the past several weeks, we've explored topics like the ACE test, survival skills, addiction, codependency, self-awareness, and healing. As we continue this journey, I want us to look at the personality test and the self-discovery tools through different lens, not as labels that define us, but as mirrors that help us to better understand ourselves. I like that we get to claim the positivity and the negativity because sometimes we're so busy trying to shove the negativity away that we're so focused on the negativity we can't even acknowledge the positivity. See, when we can heal the negativity and give it different eyes, say, oh, these survival skills, I can turn them into tangible tools because I will do things. And we know that if we apply the energy that we've applied for other people to ourselves, we did great things for other people, doing that for ourselves, using that as our tangible tools. So many of us grew up adapting to our environments in order to survive emotionally, mentally, or physically. Adverse childhood experiences, trauma, abandonment, rejection, and unstable environments often taught us to anticipate the needs of others while disconnecting from our own. Friday evenings are cool. I love my date with y'all on Friday night. Hi, Matt. I don't know who caught who that is, and I'm not saying that. I don't, Kim. It's Friday and all is well. Yes. So, um, anticipate the needs of others while disconnecting from our own. We learn to become who we thought others needed us to be in order to feel accepted, safe, loved, or valued. So with us, we're not doing that anymore, right? So, just working for 2 days, not working for 2 days. All right. So, in addiction and codependency, many people describe themselves as becoming like chameleons, constantly adjusting, constantly performing, constantly transforming to fit into relationships, family dynamics, and also workplaces and social circles, trying to fit into all these things. So, over time, this can leave a person feeling lost, confused, and disconnected from their true identity. Yet, even in those painful experiences, we develop strengths. We do. So when we become observant, we become adaptable, resilient, intuitive, creative, empathetic, and emotionally aware. The problem is that when survival becomes our normal way of living, we often fail to recognize the value in those skills because they were developed through pain and fear instead of confidence and self love. This is why healing matters. Healing gives us the opportunity to understand why we do what we do. It helps us to recognize the difference between survival behaviors and authentic self expression. It allows us to stop abandoning ourselves for approval and begin reconnecting with the person that we were always meant to be. So, this is where personality tools can become helpful. The Myers Briggs personality test helps people to understand how they process information, make decisions, communicate, and interact with the world. The Big Five personality framework gives a broader and more scientifically researched understanding of human behavior by measuring personality traits on a spectrum rather than placing people into categories. So, beyond personality tests, many people also explore tools like astrology, tarot, spirituality, or intuitive practice as ways to reflect on their lives and experiences. Some people connect deeply with these practices while others do not, and that's okay. Curiosity and self reflection are natural parts of the human experience. The important thing is to understand the purpose behind using the tools. Are we using them to gain awareness and understanding, or are we looking for something outside of ourselves to tell us who we are? There's wisdom in knowing the difference. Who asked me to read the Serenity Prayer? Anyway, there is wisdom in getting to know the difference. Personality tests and self discovery tools are not about becoming someone else or creating a false identity. They're about increasing self awareness so that we can better understand the patterns, the survival skills, and the behaviors we develop throughout our lives. Through healing and growth, we begin to reconnect with who we truly are underneath the pain, conditioning, and need for approval. The goal is not to just change your core self, but to remember your value, to trust yourself again, and to live more authentically rather than operating from old wounds and unconscious patterns. The truth is that every human being has both strengths and weaknesses. We all have strengths and weaknesses. It's cool when we take a test and we answer it honestly, it's going to tell us what our strengths and weaknesses are. And that's cool to get to know that because that does help us to develop the tools that we need to continue to move forward, to put that in our consciousness. If you go for a job interview, I know when I used to interview people, I used to ask people, would you consider your strengths and what would you consider your weaknesses? You know, I can tell you my weaknesses is technology. That's what my weaknesses is. So we all grow, evolve, and transform throughout life. And no personality type is better than the other. No test can fully define your worth, your potential, or your purpose. So these tools simply give us language and awareness that can help us better understand ourselves and our relationships. The deeper work comes from what we choose to do with our awareness. So here's 3 steps. We're about to finish. So if whoever's here needs to breathe with us, we're about to be breathing here pretty soon. I'm going to give you the 3 steps to embracing yourself through the self-discovery tools. All right. 1, use awareness for understanding and not judgment. Okay. When learning about your personality, survival patterns, or emotional behaviors, avoid labeling yourself as good or bad. Instead, become curious and ask yourself, why did I develop this behavior? What was I trying to protect? And what need was I trying to meet? You know, a lot of times when people are trying to be comfortable, they're self-sabotaging and they're not looking at the need. The need is, hey, Angela, it's good to see you. I'm glad that you're here. We're almost done, but you made it in time for breathing. And hopefully you'll get to do the rewatch of this. We talked about, different tools that we can use outside of ourselves to, kind of give us information about our personalities and can we change and, about how those tools are good at helping us develop, but they're not who we are. So that's kind of what it's been about this evening. So, yeah, I'm glad that you're here. I wish you would have been here because I always love your input. So hopefully you'll be able to join us. I'll be back on here Sunday at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. Yep. Yep. Hopefully Grinch will come out. Somebody came on here earlier and said they just joined to see the Grinch. And I'm like, well, hang in here because Grinch will come out when we do the breathing, I think. All right. So we're talking about 3 steps to embracing yourself through self-discovery tools. These tools that I talked about different tools. I talked about the Myers-Briggs test, and I talked about the Big 5 test. As you know, we've been talking about the ACE test for a couple of weeks now and how we develop survival skills, but we can turn those to tangible tools. And I talked about how these different tests can help us in different areas of our lives as well to know things about ourselves. And so now I'm talking about, just these tips on how we can, acknowledge ourselves. So 3 steps to embracing yourself through self-discovery tools is 1, use awareness for understanding and not judgment. When learning about your personality, survival patterns, or emotional behaviors, avoid labeling yourself as good or bad. Instead, become curious and ask yourself, why did I develop this behavior? What was I trying to protect? What need was I trying to meet? And self-awareness should create compassion and not shame. That's what self-awareness does. It's compassion, because when we can have full compassion for ourselves, we can definitely have compassion for other people without attaching to their wounds. See, there's a difference with compassion and empathy. Is I can pray for compassion and empathy, but when I have empathy, it's not about taking on another person's pain. It's about sitting with them in their pain and letting them feel their pain. But I don't have to feel their pain because they do. I can feel bad for them. I can even cry with them. But that doesn't mean that I'm taking on their pain. It means that I'm feeling feelings with them. Angela, what did you do to feel safe inside your body? The breathing has helped me a great deal to feel safe inside my body because I did Reiki, Angela, to be honest, the Reiki helped me a great deal because my central nervous system was jumpy. It was waiting for something to happen. So I was really jumpy and I couldn't sit still. I even still now, you can see me moving sometimes, but it's not because of the trauma. or that I'm waiting for anything to happen. It's just because I'm energized now. I do the breathing, and it's regulation and regeneration. So, but the breathing helped a great deal. Reiki helped a great deal because the Reiki, it was energy healing. And what energy healing did was, what I do is when I do it, and when we're talking about it, is the energy healing pushes the trauma away from the backbone, because that's where your ganglia chains are, which feed into your autonomic system, your automatic responses, those reactions. And so I quit reacting more, and I didn't have as much shame when I quit reacting more. Is that my reactions caused me to experience shame, because then I would feel bad about what did I do when I reacted. I had to learn how to respond. And so healing my body also, not to go into reactive mode. I hope that was helpful. So step number 2 is to separate survival skills from your identity. So many of the traits you developed were necessary at one time in your life: people pleasing, overachieving, emotional withdrawal, perfectionism, or hyper independence. May have helped you survive difficult situations. But survival patterns aren't your identity. As you heal, you can choose which behaviors still serve you and which ones no longer align with the person you truly are. Okay? 3 is to reconnect with your authentic self. You're very welcome, Angela. Thank you for being here. And I always, like I said, I always appreciate your questions and your input. So 3 is reconnecting with your authentic self. Instead of asking, who do others need me to be? Begin asking, what feels true to me? What brings me peace? What do I value? And what do I deserve for my life? Considering yourself, you matter. So the goal is not to become a different person. The goal is to remember who you were before fear, shame, trauma, approval seeking convinced you that you weren't enough. Because healing is not about creating a new self. It's about coming home to yourself. Okay? So I hope that was very helpful. Hello, Vitaly Victor from Russia with love. Thank you for joining us this evening. So I hope that you all will watch the replay of this if you just came on here, because I sure do love getting to meet new people on here and everything. But I've been on here now over an hour. And so we're going to breathe. And what this breathing does is it helps you to regulate and regenerate. Yes, the goal is to stop abandoning ourselves. Consider ourselves. You are worthy, valuable, and divine. So as we breathe this in tonight, in freedom, freedom, because we get a lot of freedom when we get to know who we are, and not trying to perform and not trying to be anything but other than who we are. So let's breathe all that in and feel that regeneration. Your cells will regenerate with the breaths, and your mind, will regulate. Your mind and body will regulate. Your autonomic response system, your ganglia chain, all this will regulate. Do you know how much energy and how much is firing up and down your spine? Those hormones, everything is passing or not passing down your spine. The hormones, the chemical releases, serotonin, dopamine, cortisol, and how that makes you feel, and so there's something to get to have a relationship with our body, our vessel, that was brought up earlier. So let's breathe into it because it likes oxygen. Okay. So here we grow. Y'all ready? Y'all ready for this? All right. So let's take a deep breath in, remembering who you are: worthy, valuable, and divine. Hold it. And release any stress, any pressures you've had this week. Just let it go. Breathe in. Hold it and just do your best. If you can hold it 4 counts, that's good. If not, it's okay. And release gently and slowly. We're only doing 5 of these if you're new, so hang in here. Breathe in. Hold it. And release. Just 2 more. Breathe in. Hold it. Release. Last one. Breathe. Hold it. Release. Thank you all so much for being here this evening. Thank you, Kim and Luke, for moderating. I appreciate you. Much appreciation. Thank you all for being here. Okay, thanks, Robbie. We missed you. You have a wonderful weekend too, Angela. I hope we get to see you on Sunday. I'll be doing story time with Stacy Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, and I hope to see you all there. Thank you so much for the thumbs up, and I still heart y'all, even though we can't see our hearts here. Thank you so much, y'all, for being here this evening. I love you too, Kim. Thank you so much. All right. So have an amazing Friday and Saturday, and I'll see y'all Sunday. Rodolfo, bye. It's so good to see you. Thank you, John London. Did you see John London's here, Robbie? Robbie, John London, did you see Robbie? Bye, y'all. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so proud. It's hard to leave my family here. I'll see y'all Sunday, okay? All right. Thanks. You too, Robbie. Thank you so much.